going to function other than taking that feature away or not completely. So you won't see login form, for instance. Does that make sense?
Not quite.
Not quite. So if I was to
say a user already has an open ID and they come to the site and they want to log on with that open ID.
they'll still be able to log on, but they won't be able to register as a new user. That's what we're looking at.
Okay.
So as long as they have an existing ID, they'll be able to log in. But if they came and they've never logged into the site before, the feature we were just looking at would not allow them to become a new user.
It's the difference between authentication and authorization.
Right.
Yes. Perfectly said. All right. Let's see, SSL settings. I just wanted to go through this just real quick, show you where the settings are. And because we obviously cannot do our service certificate here in my local site. So the first thing we need to do, first thing to do, if you need an SSL certificate, you would already know that. It's not something you just go, you know what, I think I want one. You already know that you need one for whatever reason. Let me try to be on this side for a while, then I'll be in your way. I guess that's when I'm supposed to be the linebacker, prevent him from going. All right. All right, so basically you go to whatever provider. There's a number of providers out there at different prices, and that's a whole other conversation, but you get your SSL certificate. You install it on your server. That's a whole other class. All right, but you have it installed on your server. You need to apply it on your website. First thing we're going to do is our host menu, which we have to be a host to be in. Anybody here not familiar with what a host is versus an admin? Come on, raise your hand. All right, because I'm not going to mention it.
I mentioned it, sure.
So the host user will have this host menu where an admin will not, because the host user can manage the entire .NETNuke installation versus the admin who only does the portal, the single portal. All right. So I just went into host settings, so you can see that on there. Bam, host settings. All right. I'm going to go down to. Now I'm drawing a blank for whatever reason. I talk too much. Isn't that what I'm here for?
Yes.
Oh, you know what? No, that's not it. Sorry, guys. Oh, did you see SSL?
No, it's just.
Oh, no, it's an admin.
Okay.
Oh, the wrong menu.
You want to?
Sorry, guys. That's why I put it on the site settings slide. Ooh, there's a key for you, Will.
That would have been cool.
All right. So I go to my SSL settings. Look at there. It's right there. Okay. Sorry.
So it's by portal, not by
Exactly.
installation.
Which it should be. Because every portal has usually has a URL that's different from the other portal. All right. So if you need to enable it, you check the checkbox. Now, if you don't have a certificate, that's not really going to do anything. All right. Is SSL enforced? That's a very big one, right? And I should probably uncheck those. I'm just showing you that they can be checked, I guess. All right. SSL enforced. That's a really cool feature for one reason. If you have, and let's say your default page, your home page, if you have that checked as always needing to use SSL, and I'll show you where that is in the page settings, then SSL Enforce will always change that page to be SSL, HTTPS. Okay? If this checkbox is not checked, that will not happen. And vice versa. If it's not supposed to be SSL, and somebody tries to visit using the SSL, the HTTPS in front of it, it'll switch it. Okay? So that's very important because that can save you some bandwidth, save them some page load time, all that fun stuff.
Is this per page, per tab?
Well, right now we're looking at the site center. I'll show you about the tab
Okay.
in just a second. All right. So that's what the SSL Enforce means. SSL URL and standard URL, that's for shared hosting environments, and those values will be given to you by your web host provider. Okay. So now let's say, I just mentioned the home page, so we're going to do that. I'm going to go into our control panel here, and I'm going to go into the settings for the page. Okay. So I'm going to click on that. And all the way at the bottom in our advanced settings. And I did that kind of quick, but I don't like looking at all this stuff if I don't need to, so I'm just minimizing those as I go along. Does that make sense? Okay, so I don't want to lose y'all. And at the very bottom, I haven't checked the checkbox for the SSL, use SSL, because I shouldn't. But if I had, this checkbox would be available to you. Okay, that's this one right here for secure. And when I check that, that makes sure that this page can use SSL, and not, and so that way other pages don't need to. Does that make sense? Yes, sir.
Typically, SSL requires that you have a single IP for the certificate.
Typically, yes.
Does this?
No, that's handled at IIS level.
Okay, and so you can have a bunch of virtual hosts on one IP address with multiple SSL certificates, and it's not going to cause a conflict?
No, that's management of the web server itself, and not .NET.
Okay, I'm just, that was a concern we had.
Or if you just have one master certificate, you could offer that as a feature to your customer.
Which is what the web host providers do.
So you
Well,
get like you get a,
Oh, there you go. Good to know. So do I get a price from y'all? Like free hosting for 15,000 years? Right? All right. So any other questions on SSL? I just want to go through that real quick because a lot of people are kind of afraid to use it for just not knowing what those settings really do. Because unfortunately, if I was to look into there, that description doesn't always do as well as somebody telling you what it does. Right? Okay. All right. So the next thing, style sheet editor. The first thing I always do when I go to a .NetNuke website and I install it, I go into site settings. And I'm going to minimize that once again. Down at the bottom we have the style sheet editor. Okay, that's this little section right here. All right. In there, before 4.9, you would see a whole bunch of empty tags in here. So it would be just empty references so you can override whatever your skin is. Which is okay if you use it. So the first thing I would do is I come in here and delete all that just so you save those extra ticks of bandwidth and the extra rendering that doesn't actually happen for the web browser. However, what you see in there now in 4.9 is, it looks like it's important. You got all this stuff here. However, you can still delete that. The reason it's there is if, let me open up the other site again. Anybody in my last, oh yeah, some of you over. I'll just open it up for example's sake. All this stuff right here, the default page information that .NetNuke loads when you first install, that's what all this information now is for. So you can still get rid of all of it. Okay? And then when you delete it all, you just click all that. I hit the delete key. It's all gone, and I save my style sheet. That's going to save you some ticks on the web server, and especially for web hosts. But that's something I do. Any questions on that? Now it's less for your web server to send across the wire. Even though it still sends that file, you have to modify the core to prevent that file from being sent. But now it's empty, and you also save the rendering time for the web browser, which is unfortunately longer in IE, and that's the most common one. Port aliases. This is very useful. We mentioned that every portal can have its own URL, but more importantly, a single portal can have many URLs. Like for instance, at the very bottom here, this area actually would only be available to you in the portal admin menu as long as you're logged in as a host. The admin will not see these or be able to manage these at all. So that's important to know. But it's also important to know that as a host, you would be looking in the host menu. So here it is in the bottom of the admin settings. And as you can see here, that we have this going to, I clicked that one. All right, there we go. So you can see here that I have this going to anywhere.com/dnn490, anywhere.com/.netnuke, localhost/.netnuke. So this website will respond to all of those URLs. Okay. And conversely, if we have another portal, they would have their own URL, so you could be able to say that one goes to Disney.com or whatever. Obviously not still Disney.com, but just an example of a URL. Okay. Well, I should probably use bushgardens.com, huh? Different city. So, any questions on portal aliases?
I want to talk about when you would do that for like migration from a development site to live.
Well, that's a very good point. Well, when you first bring up the site on your local machine, you're always going to have localhost / something, unless you're on like a server instance, you're developing on like a virtual machine or something like that. Then you might actually be developing against a full URL. But in those cases, the first thing you want to do before you migrate, when you move your website, if this is the way you're developing it is, if you put all your content in your website and you move it to your web server, you want to first come in here to your portal aliases and add the actual URL that this is going to respond to. Otherwise, you're going to have a little bit of a surprise when you go to your web server. Why isn't it working? It was just working. I had no idea. What's going on? And in that case, all you have to do is add a value in your database and refresh your cache. But that'll all be negated if you just go here and add your...
That's effectively what you've done here. You've developed the site locally, and then you moved it to anywhere.com, and it'll answer on anywhere.com.
Yeah, well, actually, kind of what I did, I don't like developing against localhost because you run into sometimes some problem with URLs.
You have to log in as host for that, you said?
Yes.
I get around that by putting, and it sounds silly, but I put the entry for the website in a host's phone. So you can actually just put the URL in the browser, even though it's not really hosted anywhere.
That's what I was about to show.
I'm sorry.
I run this against... if you look up at the URL, I don't have internet access, but I'm running this against anywhere.com. I do not own anywhere.com. Yeah, I modified my host file, so that way I can program against on my local machine, I can without having a server.